All right, good morning, everybody.
Recording stopped.
All right. Well,
Recording in progress.
our, com- our computers are still talking to us, but that's fine. We will carry on regardless. It has been a busy week for me here around the house. I've been doing some repairs, spending a lot of money on things I didn't plan on spending money on, and doing little jobs that I hadn't planned on doing. And guess what? My body is revolting in that I haven't been climbing ladders and crawling under sinks for a long time, and my body doesn't like doing that anymore. So I'm reminded that we need to keep in practice with everything that we do to avoid the pain that comes from just trying to do it all of a sudden. And I mean that spiritually as well, because when we fall out of our spiritual practice, we kind of get ourselves into some corners that we don't want to be in all the time, and it's a little tougher to get out. Whereas if we practice all the time and faithfully keep to our principles, it's very easy. We're limber, we're motivated, we move, and we do those things automatically. And that's where we come from when I'm talking about the keeper of the flame. The keeper of the flame being that person who is always ready. Now, overcoming unimaginable odds is a popular theme in history and in fiction. We are inspired by the heroes in dystopian stories who refuse to accept the status quo and hold to a higher moral principle. The backstory forming the canvas for our hero is, however, a little less inspiring. It is a story of greed, treachery, deceit, and ignorance crushing hope, dreams, and confidence. It is the story of the rule of law, misinformed convictions, and common fear being manipulated to convince peoples to surrender their own power and accept their misery as preordained. The popular Hunger Games stories introduced us to a population divided into its skill sets upon which the elites were dependent for survival. These worker classes are kept segregated from each other except for the periodic competition designed to instill pride in each group while maintaining a healthy distrust of the others. To prevent sharing of knowledge or intergroup cooperation that would expose the fragile condition of those elites. Now, in the stories, our young heroine of the stories sees through the illusion and adventure ensues. She is an example of one who is a keeper of the flame, one who knows, without knowing how, that the illusion she has been told is the truth is anything but. Humanity learned how to use fire long before it learned how to make fire. Lightning strikes, lava flows, or the occasional dragon raid would set fires that early humans would then tame and maintain. The keeper of the flame was a dedicated individual who the community trusted to maintain its fire source and or carry embers to new locations, since early humans tended to be migratory. The keeper of the flame protected the fire or its embers through rain, wind, or any other adversity that threatened it, knowing its loss could leave the community without the ability to cook foods, form tools, or simply keep warm until a new source was discovered. The gift of fire also gave our ancestors light to extend their day and push back the dark where things that go bump in the night inspire imaginations to conjure up all manner of evil. To this day, we refer to spiritual awakening as enlightenment. Seeing the light or stepping out of the shadow, because in the light the truth is clearly illuminated and evil cannot exist. We are inspired by the heroes in the dystopian stories who refuse the status quo and hold to a higher moral principle. These keepers of the flame endure treachery, deceit, and ignorance on their historic journeys. These challenges are the canvas upon which our heroes are painted. Holmes writes in this thing called You, we are all some part of a universal order. The very urge for personal gratification is incomplete until it finds a universal outlet. This is the cause back of all upheavals in human history. The pattern is trying to fit the pieces into greater and greater units, a union of all. This union, Holmes continues, however, does not mean sameness. For while unity requires conformity to principles, unity never means uniformity. Every blade of grass, every crystal, every drop of water, like every individual, is a little different from any other one of its species. In our example of the dystopian future, the elites have conjured up the lie that any one group of people is good for only one purpose, and that they must conform to their role without question. It serves their narrative to have people believe there is no reason for them to aspire to any other existence than the one they are born into. Farmers farm, miners mine, builders build, and so on. All for the benefit of the elites, whose purpose, it seems, is simply to consume. The elites control all distribution, and through their law keepers enforce draconian laws that maintain the status quo, manipulating the population through a combination of fear, force, and carefully measured rewards. These dystopian stories, unfortunately, are not just works of science fiction. Art mimics life. The caste system still evident in India, the feudal system in medieval Europe, and the commonality of slavery in the Roman Empire and more recently throughout European colonial outposts serve as patterns for these futuristic cautionary tales. Holmes writing again in this thing called You cannot change a pattern of fear by maintaining an attitude of fear or by fluctuating between fear and faith. He advises refuse to entertain contrary ideas. Our heroes, these keepers of the flame, see beyond the lie. Our heroes see a wall not as a barrier, but as an invitation to explore, investigate, and uncover hidden truths. Perhaps some of us might be wise to be careful what we wish for when we attempt to contain the human spirit in some illusion of perfection. The human spirit is driven through our unity with the divine spirit to shatter lies in the search for truth. Our hero does not break the pattern of fear by maintaining an attitude of fear. Our hero sees the truth, knows the truth, and lives the truth. Science of mind practitioners are the heroes in our collective journey of enlightenment. Not just those practitioners who are licensed by Centers for Spiritual Living. You don't have to be licensed to be a practitioner in your own life. But anyone who understands the divine principles and applies them in their life is a hero, is a practitioner hero. Anyone who lives the life of divine principle. Anyone who can cut through the chatter and chaos generated by those who would stifle our divine, natural urges to grow beyond our boundaries. Anyone whose default setting is to accept others as they are, wherever they are on their spiritual journey, is a hero. Keeping the flame alive is something anyone can do, but only someone willing to risk getting burned. Someone willing to put principle before self-gratification can do it successfully. If you're more concerned with getting out of the storm than protecting the flame, you're not going to be a very successful keeper of the flame. You need to risk your personal safety, your personal comfort once in a while for the good of the flame, the good of keeping those principles forefront in your thinking. Our history is a chronicle of heroes, ordinary people who have done extraordinary things. Sometimes they just had no other choice. The frontiersman who opened a continent may have just been running away from some ill-advised social or financial choices. The soldier who stormed a beach would probably have been happier anywhere else. Our history would benefit by including more recognition of the real heroes in our collective journey, those keepers of the flame. The slave who risked death by learning to read is a keeper of the flame. Knowing the lie of his or her unsuitability to be educated as a falsehood constructed to serve someone else's interest. The person of privilege who chooses to help others lift themselves can also be a keeper of the flame. Their role may seem less heroic, but without a teacher or mentor recognizing truth to buck the status quo, would anything ever change? Aligning our decisions with spiritual principle requires our constant attention to the flame. The common consciousness is polluted with conveniences to justify unprincipled actions. A thief may justify stealing a loaf of bread to feed his family. A policeman may justify a lifelong pursuit of the thief as honoring the law. An author may wrap a novel around their story, recognizing one could rot in jail, but the other rots in a hell of his own making. The flame, the principles of our divine belief, the principles that tell us we are each part of a whole spiritual being, the principle that tells us that each and every one of us is a part of this whole being, is the flame we need to keep protected and in the forefront of our choices. We want to understand how this universe works, that there is a power beyond us of which we are simply a part, and not separate from, but joined with our common divinity, our common principle, our common flame that guides us and leads us to an inner peace where we can see the trauma going on around us, immerse ourselves in the chaos going on all around us, and still see that the truth lies just there in our grasp. When we dismiss the lies that are being fed to us, sometimes by well-meaning people, sometimes not. But when we see that truth, live that truth, demonstrate that truth, others are attracted to our belief. Others come around us and join our little band of rebels, if you will. And as we continue to live our truth, as we continue to keep that flame burning throughout the adversities of our lives, we attract more and more. And as in the dystopian stories, the science fiction movies and books that tell this story over and over again, eventually we reach that tipping point where the truth becomes obvious to more and more, and the truth becomes our reality once again. But sometimes we got to live through some stuff first, and that's what makes it a little tough sometimes. That's what makes it a challenge. And that's why I say that these challenges are the canvas upon which our heroes are painted. Because without the challenges, there is no hero, is there? If everything was on fire, keeping the flame alive wouldn't be important. But keeping it safe, staying focused on divine principle, lights our path, warms our hearts, and avoids the need to hunt up a dragon, because that seldom ends well. Thank you.